This Good to Go segment is sponsored by Corewell Health.
Well, this is the time of year when people make resolutions to eat better, exercise more, and take steps to a healthier life. Scheduling an annual checkup and health screening can go a long way toward helping individuals make the right lifestyle decisions. Dr. Harlan Holman is a primary care physician with Corewell Health West. He's here to walk us through the importance of that annual checkup and talk about why we should be making those screenings a priority this year. Hi, Dr. Holman.
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for having me. Yes, it's a really important thing to get that yearly checkup so we can talk about screenings you're due for and ways to stay healthy.
Yeah, let's talk about that annual checkup because that's one I try to skip. I'll admit it. I'm an avoider, but that you say is critical.
It is for several reasons. One is to kind of go over what type of screening you're due for based on your gender and age, but also to establish that relationship with your primary care provider.
What are some of the baseline kind of health indicators that we should all be watching?
So cardiovascular health, I'll start with that, and that would be cholesterol checks, blood pressure checks, screening for diabetes. So kind of the overall assessment for risk factors for your heart health.
Okay, let's break this out by gender since you mentioned it. For women, what are some of the key annual screenings that we should be considering based on our age, of course?
Okay, yep. So I'll give you the top three for
Okay.
women. So cervical cancer screening, that starts at 21, and breast cancer screening kind of depends on risk factors, but that's where you kind of want to know what the family history is, and at least starting or having that discussion at 40 or sooner if it runs in the family. And then bone health screening. So making sure that you don't have osteoporosis. Usually that's after menopause where you start having that discussion, but could be sooner based on, again, risk factors.
Okay. What about the men? What do they need to be considering?
Okay, so men are a little more reluctant to go in to see their primary care provider, I think. But one thing I think that they shouldn't worry about is uncomfortable exams. I know there sometimes that can sway men from going in. So I think they need to have a discussion about prostate cancer screening. And they should have a discussion about colon cancer screening. And that's one change actually for men and women, is it used to be 50 where we recommended colon cancer screening, and now it's 45.
I know that when I go see my primary care physician that they have that little chart where I talk about my mental health. They've started asking about that. And that you also suggest that this should be a priority. What do we do to support good mental health, you think?
Yes, that's a great question. So I think, one is to talk about it. I think, just because you're having some symptoms of depression or anxiety doesn't mean you need a medication. There's other options with therapy, exercise, talking about sleep. And sometimes those symptoms of fatigue could be not depression, but thyroid is a common disorder that we see a lot in primary care.
So, and then that initial visit with your physician can often lead to, you got to follow the path, right? Once you get all the information gathered in
Right.
that initial visit.
Correct. And we use a lot of shared decision making. So just because you're due for a certain test doesn't mean you have to get it done. There's always alternatives. People often get scared about colonoscopies. Well, you can get a yearly stool test instead. So I think there's a lot of options. One thing I like to advise is that usually insurance covers a yearly well visit without a copay. But if you do going off these other directions, insurance may not always cover that.
I know you have people that will help folks figure out what is covered because that keeps a lot of people away. They're afraid about the financial aspects of it.
Definitely. So I think if you start going off in other directions, you may want to just double check with your provider about what's covered, what's not, before they start ordering a bunch of different tests.
Yeah. All right. It's all about that relationship with the physician as well as the folks on their team. All right.
Definitely.
For more information, talk to your primary care physician or log on and search spectrumhealth.org. Dr. Holman, thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.